Hey, good morning, everyone. Pastor Travis here. It is April 23rd. I'm just doing a midweek devotion for the church. I hope you guys enjoy this. I just want to encourage your spirits and put a little bit of a challenge here for you. And I just wanted to read out of 1 Kings chapter 3. 1 Kings chapter 3. It's talking about Solomon. And in verse 2 it says, "Meanwhile, the people sacrificed at the high places because there was no house built for the name of the Lord until those days." Now, it's very important to realize in the Old Testament, the pagan religions, they actually believed that the higher they were up a mountain or a hill, the closer they were to God, and the more chance that their prayer would be heard. And so, Israel began to worship in the same way. Between the tabernacle of Moses and Solomon's temple, there was a period of time where God allowed people to worship in such a fashion because there was no temple. But let's read on here in chapter 3, verse 3. "And Solomon loved the Lord, walked in the statutes of his father David, except that he sacrificed and burnt incense at the high places." Now this verse 3, is really projecting into chapter 11 of this book, where it talks about it was okay for them to worship at the high places, but it was projecting a future event where he would begin to be involved with supporting pagan religion, as many of his wives drew his heart away from the Lord to worship false gods. And I want to show you this here in 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 4. "And it was when Solomon was old that his wives turned his heart after other gods." I want you to notice something, the word "his heart." Because we want to talk about our hearts today. "His wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not loyal to the Lord his God, as was the heart of his father David. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and he did not fully follow the Lord." So the question is, are we fully following the Lord, as did his father David? "And then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, on the hill that is in the east of Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the people of Ammon. And he did likewise for all his foreign wives who burned incense and sacrifice to their gods." Okay, and so he began to actually connect with pagan religions and worship foreign gods. Ashtoreth was a Canaanite goddess of fertility, whose worship involved not only sexual rites but astrology. The worship of Milcom included human sacrifice, especially those of children, and the worship of Chemosh was equally cruel and centered in astrology. Okay, and so this is what he got connected with after knowing the Lord his God. And verse 9 I want to share here is very important. It says, "So the Lord became angry with Solomon because his heart," okay, "had turned from the Lord God of Israel." His heart had turned from the Lord God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. And we would say, well, I would never turn my heart from the Lord, the God of Israel. And I like how the writer here says, who, by the way, God appeared to twice. Has God ever appeared to you? I mean, I've never seen him. But even if God has appeared, and you've had great encounters with God, and you've had great experiences with God in the past, we can, if we're not careful, we can begin to go to the high places or set things in our life as high elevated things in our lives that are more important than God. And so today, I just wanted to encourage you with this little devotion to say this. I'm going for a little prayer walk this morning, and one of the questions I'm going to be asking the Father is, Lord, are there any high places in my life? Are there areas that take the place of you in my life? And then not in a spirit of condemnation, but just come back home and just begin to say, if there's areas, I'm going to just readjust my life in this season to make sure even things that, aren't necessarily sinful, but I don't want those things to take the place that only God deserves. He deserves the highest place in our life. He deserves to be my high place, not anything else. Everything else has to come secondary to God. So I want to challenge you to do the same. Little homework assignment for you. Go for a prayer walk. Get out of the house. It's good for your mental health as well. Just go for a walk and say, Lord, are there any high places in my life? I want to work on those things. I want to make sure that you're number one in everything in this season. I'm coming out of this isolation. When we come out of this isolation, I'm going to be closer to you, and I'm going to be stronger in the Lord. God bless you. Have an amazing week, and we'll talk to you soon.